Well, we already thought this ring was somewhat disappointing with the release of 11.0.7, however, things have somehow gotten even worse. Because even after buffing most of the gems by 40 or 20% more effect, and even also after increasing the item level of this ring by a flat 20, now it doesn't start at 619 and caps at 639, it starts at 639 and caps at 658, even then it would have been quite weak, comparable to its item level, and that was assuming you had your best in slot gems on top of course having to wait some 6 resets to upgrade the item level of the ring up to 658. Now unfortunately what has happened this week is that unlike of course what was testable on the PTR, where you had, besides having of course the PTR vendor which gave you all of the runes for you to try, you could also see many of the runes being up and available from the rewards around the aisle, as well as from the actual vendor that you can use to buy gems you haven't discovered yet. However, now that we go into live, most players have reported practically only receiving 4 gems on week 1. They have gotten the War Queen's Citrine to trigger your Singing Thunder Citrine, your red Citrine gem, as a buff to your allies, the Thunderlord's Crackling Citrine, so the single target damaging gem, the Mariner's Hallowed Citrine, which is the 2 target AoE heal, and the Windsinger's Rune Citrine, which is the one that you get by default for your highest secondary stat. However, of course, this results in you having a very little amount of combinations available for you for gems, which, as you might have seen already from the comments going around, this is even currently weaker than a 577 item level ring. Just for fun and for the memes, players even went on to sim the results of these rings, and indeed the current 642 item level ring is losing to rings some 60 item levels below in power. Now, as a spoiler, the effects of this ring were already documented being quite disappointing. Pretty much the only one effect that might make the ring powerful, especially for mastery users, is going to be the legendary Skipper's Citrine. This one is the gem effect which has a chance to cast a random Singing Citrine effect at 150% effectiveness. Now, when you look at this proc, you assume, oh, okay, so if I use this, single target damage gem and this Skipper Citrine gem procs, I'm going to do 150% of the damage of this gem. That's what it can be used for. Actually, what makes this gem the most powerful one is for your secondary stats, because since the secondary stats gems don't have an effect that actually procs, but very simply fixed secondary stat buffs, what you actually get as a buff from this Skipper Citrine gem when you're using the secondary stat gems is a 15-second long buff which gives you the secondary stats on that Citrine. So the play for you after using the Skipper Citrine in your red gem slot is to use the yellow gem slot for all of your secondary stats and then the blue gem slot for your mastery stat, and then have them proc practically more than double their secondary stats because your Skipper Citrine is proccing. And this can give you over 7,000 of your secondary stat, which is more than what you can currently get as a 639 item level ring, which is about 6,400 secondary stats. But even then, it is very conditional, right? First of all, the Skipper Citrine is a proc. It procs 4 times per minute, so both of your other gems will proc a couple times per minute, so 15 seconds per effect. They will proc for 30 seconds every 60, so it will have a 50% uptime. And on top of that, one of those gems have to be the mastery gem, because unfortunately for you, your gem to buff your highest secondary stat, the Windsinger Citrine, also happens to be a red gem, just like the Skipper Citrine, so you cannot use them at the same time. So this has a better effect for mastery users compared to the other specs that don't really get nearly as much from mastery. But of course, we have been talking about these 3 gems, and yet so far not a single one of these 3 is available. You don't have the one to buff all of your secondary stats, you don't have the one to buff your mastery, and you don't have the one to proc these effects again right now. So it is good to know, that while we thought this was going to be disappointing, we have actually managed to outdo ourselves and make the release of this ring even more disappointing than it was expected to be. see, we can definitely, for now at least, we can definitely say the goal that Blizzard announced has completely failed, because they said our goal here is to make the ring a clear choice. Right now, this ring is the clear loser in power to rings 60 plus item levels below this ring. And it gets worse, of course, because then they also say, as well as keeping it relevant in Season 2, because for the next 6 weeks you will keep upgrading its item level all the way up to 658, which would be, in terms of item level, on par with heroic raiding level gear for Season 2. Now, at the very least, to be fair, even though this expected goal has completely failed, Blizzard did mention this may require, this definitely will require us to make tuning adjustments to specific gems later, so that we can avoid unintended power spikes, and we may want to buff weaker gems as well, but we are focused nonetheless on the item level of the ring for now as our guide for its performance, to show you that at max level it should be on par with other rings of the same item level at the beginning of Season 2. Well into, actually, Season 2, because a heroic item level ring could last you for quite a while. However, as mentioned, this has definitely failed. It's also definitely quite confusing why they would go this route, especially because, for example, one of your default gems you will find in week 1 is a healer gem. Even worse, actually, the only blue gem you're getting is a healer gem. So they didn't even give you the option, give you the first yellow gem being a damage gem, and then the second yellow gem being a healing gem, and then the next 2 gems were for both roles. Instead, not even that. You're practically locked to be using a healing gem even as a tank and even as a DPS. So definitely, if you wanted to engooden yourself to the player base, starting out like this with the power level of these gems on week 1 of this patch was definitely not the right take for this new ring. Yes, no doubt we will catch each other again in about 4 weeks, possibly 5 weeks, talking about how OP this ring is, because Blizzard will have buffed it significantly, we will have buffed the effect of the gems significantly, so that it will become a very powerful choice for the beginning of Season 2. But for now, it is definitely an L and definitely a miss when it comes to the power level for the release of this ring. Pretty much, we can confidently say that pretty much the only good thing this ring did is give a 639, or I guess right now 642 item level slot for players in their ring. For the players who didn't have yet a mid-track ring or even a crafted ring they were still missing, they practically now got a free high item level slot with this ring, and that's kind of the only good thing this ring gave players on week 1 of this patch. So I guess we will see surely each other again, possibly shortly, because we will have to go back to report the buffs that these gems will be receiving. I feel somewhat soon, definitely. But for today though, on this Thursday, this was all that was needed to report on the absolute state of this newly added ring in patch 11.0.7. So for today, with all this done, we can now leave each other. We're starting, as usual, the goodbyes by thanking everyone for having watched the video, together with, of course, everyone who has been supporting completely for free by liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, yep, it's that time of the day again. Waking up after sleeping only 3 hours, the rest of the day is doomed.